The day the ships came, the sky turned dark. Dr. Han Ji-ho was working in his lab when the emergency alerts began to sound. The old scientist looked up from his microscope and reached for the remote control on his desk. His fingers trembled slightly as he turned on the small television in the corner of his underground laboratory. "This is not a drill," the news anchor said, her voice shaking. "Unknown vessels have entered Earth's atmosphere. They are currently holding position above major cities worldwide." Ji-ho stood slowly, his joints stiff after sitting for hours. At 63, his black hair had mostly turned gray, and deep lines marked his face. He walked to the window of his lab, which showed only the concrete walls of the underground facility. He would not be able to see the ships from here. His phone rang. The screen showed his son's name, Tae. "Father, are you watching the news?" Tae asked when Ji-ho answered. "Yes. Where are you?" "At the university. Everyone is going outside to look at the ships. They're huge, Father. Like nothing we've ever seen." Ji-ho frowned. "Come to the lab immediately. It's safer here." There was a pause before Tae replied, "I'm on my way." Ji-ho hung up and returned his attention to the television. The camera showed one of the ships now. It was enormous, shaped like a perfect diamond, and seemed to be made of some kind of crystal that caught the light and broke it into 1,000 colors. It was beautiful and terrifying. The scientist opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a small key. With it, he unlocked the bottom drawer and removed an old notebook filled with handwritten notes. He had started these notes 15 years ago, after his wife Sumi had died. Back then, his research had been about grief and loss. Now it might be about saving the world. 30 minutes later, Tae arrived at the lab. He was 32, tall and thin like his mother had been. His eyes, which were also like hers, were wide with fear and excitement. "The roads are crazy," he said as he entered. "Everyone is either trying to leave the city or get closer to see the ships." "Foolish," Ji-ho muttered. He handed his son the notebook. "Read this again. I think we might need it sooner than we expected." Tae took the notebook with a frown. "The song protocol? Father, we've been over this. It's not possible. It's just theory." "Not anymore." Ji-ho led his son to a door at the back of the lab. He entered a code on a keypad, and the heavy door slid open. Inside was a smaller room filled with equipment that hummed with power. In the center stood something covered with a white sheet. Ji-ho pulled off the sheet to reveal a strange device. It looked like a metal chair surrounded by rings of different sizes. Each ring was made of a material that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Wires connected the rings to large machines against the walls. "You built it," Tae whispered. "When?" "I've been working on it for years. Nights, weekends, whenever you weren't here." Ji-ho placed a hand on one of the rings, and it seemed to respond, to his touch glowing softly. "It's not finished, but it's close." Tae shook his head. "Even if you could make it work, the power requirements would be—" "I've solved that problem," Ji-ho interrupted. "The quantum coupling effect creates its own energy once started. It just needs a push." Before Tae could respond, the television in the main lab suddenly grew louder. Both men returned to see what was happening. On the screen, the news showed a live feed from the United Nations building in New York. A strange figure stood at the podium where world leaders usually spoke. It was tall and thin, with skin so pale it was almost see-through. Inside its body, lights moved like blood in veins, but they glowed blue and purple. It had no hair, and its eyes were large and completely black. "People of Earth," the being said, its voice deep and musical. "I am Commander Rock of the Eternal Ones. We have watched your planet for many years. Now we have come to claim it." The room where the world leaders sat was silent with shock. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds across the stars," Rock continued. "None have successfully resisted us. We cannot be killed. We cannot be stopped. We have lived for 10,000 of your years, and we will live for 10,000 more." To prove his point, Rock motioned to someone off-screen. A soldier stepped forward, and fired a gun directly at the alien commander. The bullet passed through Rock's body as if he were made of water, leaving a hole that quickly closed again. Rock didn't even flinch. "We are immortal," he said simply. "You have 7 days to surrender your planet to us. If you fight, you will lose. If you surrender, some of you may be allowed to live as our servants." The broadcast cut off suddenly, returning to the shocked news anchors who had no words. Jiho turned off the television. "Now do you understand?" he asked his son. "This is what the song protocol was made for." Tay sat heavily in a chair. "But we don't know if it will work on them. We've never even seen beings like this before." "Did you see how the light moved inside them?" Jiho asked, excitement making his voice stronger. "They exist in a quantum state just like I theorized. They're not truly solid. That's why the bullet passed through him." He moved to a computer and began typing quickly. "The song protocol targets exactly that kind of quantum state. It forces particles to choose a single position, a single reality. But Father, even if it works, the device is designed to affect a small area. How would we use it against all of them?" Jiho smiled for the first time that day. "We don't need to affect all of them, just their leader, Commander Rock. If we can make him mortal, the others will know it can be done." A soft beeping sound interrupted. "Them." It came from a sensor near the ceiling. Jiho looked up sharply. "What is that?" Tay asked. "Motion detector," Jiho replied quietly. "It detects changes in the quantum field." He moved slowly to another drawer and removed a small device that looked like a flashlight. "There's something here with us." As if responding to his words, the air in the corner of the lab began to shimmer. A figure started to appear, another of the Eternal Ones. This one was smaller than Rock had been, but had the same transparent skin with light flowing inside. "They found us already," Tay whispered. Jiho pointed the device at the alien and pressed a button. A high-pitched sound filled the room, and the alien's form became more solid for a moment. It made a noise like breaking glass, and then vanished. Completely. "It's gone for now, but it will return with others," Jiho said, his voice urgent. "We don't have 7 days. We need to finish the song protocol now." He looked at his son with determination. "Call General Kim. Tell him we need to meet with the Emergency Council immediately." As Tay reached for his phone, Jiho returned to the hidden room and the strange device within it. He placed his hand on the chair in the center and closed his eyes. "Sumi," he whispered his dead wife's name. "I think I finally understand what you were trying to tell me before you died. Life is precious because it ends." He opened his eyes and looked at the quantum rings surrounding the chair. "And now I'm going to teach that lesson to beings who have forgotten it." The emergency bunker under the Blue House was crowded with important people. Military leaders, government officials, and scientists from around the world had gathered in Seoul. They all looked tired and afraid. Jiho and Tai stood at the front of the room. Behind them, a large screen showed pictures of the alien ships that now floated above every major city on Earth. It had been 3 days since the Eternal Ones had arrived. 4 days remained until their deadline. General Kim, a short man with a stern face, called the meeting to order. "Yesterday, the nation of Brunei attempted to fight back against the alien ship above their capital," he said. His voice was heavy. "They fired all their weapons, nothing worked, then the aliens responded." He pressed a button, and the screen showed a satellite image. Where there had once been a city, there was now only a perfect circle of smooth, glass-like surface. 40,000 people, General Kim said quietly. Gone in seconds. The room was silent. Then a woman spoke up. She was the defense minister from Russia. "So we cannot fight," she said. "But we also cannot surrender. What options do we have?" All eyes turned to Jiho. General Kim nodded at him. "Dr. Han has something to share with us." Jiho stepped forward. He had not slept in 2 days, and it showed on his face. But his eyes were clear and focused. "The beings calling themselves the Eternal Ones are not truly immortal," he began. "They exist in what we call a quantum state. This means their bodies can be in many places at once at the smallest level. When a bullet hits them or a bomb, They simply shift those parts of themselves to another place, another possibility. He pressed a button, and the screen showed diagrams of swirling particles. This is why they cannot be killed by normal weapons, Jiho continued. It would be like trying to kill a cloud by stabbing it with a knife. If they cannot be killed, why are we here? Asked an American official. Jiho looked at the man. Because 15 years ago I discovered something that might help us now. He glanced at Tae, who nodded encouragingly. When my wife Sumi died, I was lost, Jiho said. His voice grew softer. She had an illness no one could cure. After she was gone, I became obsessed with understanding death itself. What is the line between living and not living? Why must all things end? He took a deep breath. My research led me to study quantum physics, and I found something unexpected. Every living thing has its own pattern, like a song that plays at a level we cannot hear. These aliens, the eternal ones, they keep themselves immortal by playing many songs at once. Tae stepped forward to continue. My father created a device called the Song Protocol. It forces quantum particles to play only one song, to exist in only one place at one time. You have a weapon that can kill these immortals? General Kim asked. Not exactly, Jiho said. The Song Protocol doesn't kill. It makes killing possible. It makes them normal, like us. The defense minister from Russia frowned. You want to make the invaders mortal? What good is that if we still cannot defeat their technology? Their ships, their weapons? Their technology works because they work, Tae explained. Everything they use is connected to their quantum state. Change them and we change their tools. Have you tested this device? Someone asked. Jiho nodded. On small samples we collected from where their scout landed. It works. The alien matter becomes fixed, solid. So we use this weapon and then what? We still have to fight them, the American official said. Yes, Jiho agreed. But it will be a fair fight. And they have not had a fair fight in 10,000 years. They have forgotten what it means to fear death. General Kim stepped forward again. Dr. Han's device is our best hope. But there is a problem. Jiho's face grew serious. The Song Protocol requires a human operator. Someone must connect directly to the device to guide it. The machine cannot work alone. What happens to this operator? Asked the Russian minister. There was a long pause before Jiho answered. The mental strain is severe. The operator must process quantum information that no human brain was designed to handle. The damage will be significant, fatal, Tae added quietly. The operator will die. The room fell silent again. I will operate the device myself, Jiho said firmly. Tae turned to his father, his face showing pain. Father, no. Jiho raised his hand to stop his son's protest. It is my creation. My responsibility. General Kim cleared his throat. There is one more thing you should know. We believe the Eternal Ones are aware of Dr. Han's work. A soldier stepped forward and pressed a button. The screen showed security footage from Jiho's lab. In it, the shimmering form of an alien appeared, looked around, and then vanished. This was 2 days ago after you left for this bunker, General Kim explained. They came back. They know about the Song Protocol, Jiho said, his voice steady, but they don't understand it. If they did, they would have destroyed it already. How can you be sure? Someone asked. Because they are afraid, Jiho replied simply. For the first time in thousands of years, they face something they don't understand, something that might hurt them. The American official stood up. I say, we move forward with Dr. Han's plan. My country will provide whatever resources you need. One by one, the others agreed. Only Tae remained silent, watching his father with worry in his eyes. After the meeting, father and son walked through the halls of the bunker together. There must be another way, Tae said softly. Let me operate the device. I understand the theory as well as you do. Jiho stopped and looked at his son. In that moment, he saw Sumi in Tae's eyes in the shape of his face. No, he said gently. You must live, Tae. Someone needs to teach the world what the song protocol means. What? It teaches us about life. What does it teach us? Tay asked, his voice breaking slightly. Jiho placed a hand on his son's shoulder. That everything precious has an end. The Eternal Ones have forgotten this. They have lived so long that nothing matters to them anymore. They conquer because they are bored. He smiled sadly. Your mother understood? In her last days, she said that life was beautiful because it was short. Like a perfect song that you can only hear once. Before Tay could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the bunker. Red lights flashed in the hallway. General Kim ran toward them. The Eternal Ones, he shouted. They're attacking the city earlier than expected. We need to move the song. Protocol now. Is it ready? Jiho asked, suddenly alert. No, Tay replied. We still need at least a day to finish the calibrations. Jiho's face hardened with determination. Then we work faster. Get every scientist and engineer you can find. We finish it today. As they rushed toward the lab where the song protocol had been moved, Jiho felt a strange calmness come over him. For 15 years he had searched for meaning after Sumi's death. Now he had found it. Soon, he would show the Immortal Army that humans had a weapon they could never understand. The courage to face death with open eyes. Time was running out. Jiho, Tay, and 20 of the world's best scientists worked around the clock in the underground lab. Outside, above the bunker, Seoul was in chaos. The Eternal Ones had begun to land their smaller ships. Reports came in, every hour of strange, glowing soldiers walking through the streets. Nothing could stop them. Bullets passed through them. Bombs did nothing. They walked through walls as if they were not there. They're getting closer, General Kim said, entering. The lab with a tablet showing a map of the city. Red dots marked where the aliens had been seen. Many of the dots were now very close to the bunker. Jiho didn't look up from his work. He was connecting delicate wires to the center of the song protocol device. The machine now took up most of the room. It looked like a giant metal flower with curved petals surrounding a chair in the middle. The petals were made of a special metal that shifted colors in the light. How much longer? General Kim asked. Tay checked the computer readings. 2 hours, maybe 3, he answered. The quantum resonators are still not properly aligned. General, Kim's face was grim. We might not have 3 hours. Our last defense line is failing. Now Jiho did look up. Then get us more soldiers. We need more time. The general nodded and left. Jiho turned to his son. Tay, check the neural interface again, he said. It needs to be perfect. The neural interface was a helmet covered with sensors. It would connect Jiho's brain directly to the machine. It was the most dangerous part of the device. Tay picked up the helmet, his hands shaking slightly. Father, please, he said quietly. Let me do this instead. Jiho sighed. They had had this argument many times in the past 2 days. We've talked about this, it must be me. Why? Tay demanded, louder now. Some of the other scientists looked up. Why must it be you? I know the theory just as well. I helped build this device. Jiho put down his tools and faced his son. Because I've already lived my life, he said simply. I've seen you grow up. I've loved your mother. I've done my work. You still have a future ahead of you. What future? Tay asked, his voice breaking. If this fails, none of us have a future. It won't fail, Jiho said firmly. Not if we finish it correctly. Now check the interface. Reluctantly, Tay returned to his work. Jiho watched him for a moment, thinking how much he looked like Sumi when he was focused. Then he went back to the wiring. An hour passed, then another. The sounds of fighting above grew louder. Twice, the lights flickered as explosions shook the bunker. We're almost ready, Tay announced finally. The resonators are aligned. The power system is stable. He looked at his father. We just need to finish the neural interface calibration. Jiho nodded and sat in the chair at the center of the device. Tay placed the helmet on his father's head and began to connect it to the machine. Once I activate the protocol, Jiho said as Tay worked, It will take about 5 minutes for the quantum wave to reach full strength. During that time, I will change. Tay's hands paused. Change how? Jiho looked his son in the eyes. My consciousness will expand to process the quantum information. I will see things no human was meant to see. It will be too much for my brain to handle. But before the damage becomes fatal, the wave will spread beyond this room. Beyond this? Bunker. Eventually it will cover the whole planet. And all the eternal ones will become mortal. Tay finished. Yes, Jiho said softly. They will know what it means to live with an end in sight, to be like us. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the bunker. The lights went out completely for several seconds before emergency power came on. Alarms blared. General, Kim's voice came over the speakers. They've breached the outer defenses. All personnel prepare for... His voice cut off mid-sentence. Jiho looked at Tay. We need to start now. It's not fully calibrated, Tay protested. There's no more time, Jiho insisted. He reached for the activation switch on the arm of his chair. The lab door burst open. General Kim stumbled in, blood running down his face. They're here, he gasped, right behind me. As if to prove his words, the wall behind him suddenly shimmered. A figure stepped through the solid concrete as if it were air. It was an Eternal One soldier, tall and glowing with inner light. Then another appeared. And another. The scientists backed away in fear. Some ran for the other exit, but that wall also shimmered, and more aliens appeared. Finally, a larger figure emerged through the main door. Unlike the soldiers, who glowed blue, this one pulsed with golden light. It was Commander Rock himself. Dr. Hanji-ho, Rock said, his voice echoing strangely in the room. We meet at last. Jiho sat very still in the chair, his finger hovering over the activation switch. You know my name, he said. We know much about you, Rock replied. We know what you're trying to do. He gestured at the song protocol device. An impressive creation for such a short-lived species, but ultimately useless. If it's useless, why are you here to stop it? Jiho asked calmly. For a moment, Rock seemed surprised by the question. Then he moved closer. Curiosity, perhaps. We've existed for 10,000 years. Little surprises us anymore. That sounds like a sad way to live, Jiho said. Rock tilted his head. Sad? No. We have moved beyond such simple emotions, beyond pain, beyond fear. He looked around at the humans in the room. Beyond all the weaknesses that limit your kind. Those aren't weaknesses, Jiho argued. They're what give life meaning. Tay stood protectively beside his father's chair. Our pain reminds us that we're alive. Our fear makes us brave. Our short lives make each day important. Rock made a sound that might have been laughter. Philosophy from doomed creatures. How quaint. He raised his hand and energy began to gather around his fingers. Your device is clever, but not clever enough. We've studied your quantum theories. We've existed in multiple states since before your species discovered fire. Then you should understand what the song protocol does, Jiho said. His finger moved closer to the activation switch. It attempts to collapse our quantum state, Rock said, to force us into a single reality. But it cannot work. The power required would be already here, Jiho interrupted. He pressed the switch. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the pedals of the machine began to glow, softly at first, then brighter. A humming sound filled the room, starting low but quickly rising in pitch. Rock's eyes widened. He flung the energy from his hand directly at Jiho, but it dissipated before reaching him, scattered by some invisible shield that had formed around the device. What is happening? Rock demanded, his confident voice now tinged with something new, something that sounded very much like fear. Jiho sat straighter in the chair as the helmet on his head began to glow with the same light as the machine. When he spoke, his voice had changed, becoming deeper and resonating oddly, as if multiple voices were speaking at once. The song protocol has begun, he said. In 5 minutes, it will reach every corner of this planet, and you will remember what it means to be truly alive. Rock stepped back. For the first time in thousands of years, the commander of the Eternal Ones felt uncertainty, and as the humming of the machine grew louder, the glow from his immortal body began to flicker. The room hummed with power. The song protocol's metal petals spun slowly around Jiho, glowing brighter with each turn. In the center, Jiho sat perfectly still, his eyes closed, the neural helmet sending blue light across his face. Commander, Rock took another step back. The glow inside his body flickered again like a light about to go out. "Stop this now," Rock demanded, but his voice had lost its confidence. Tay stood by his father, watching the readings on the nearby computer. "It's working," he whispered. "The quantum field is stabilizing." The other Eternal One soldiers began to move toward the device, but Rock held up his hand to stop them. "Don't get too close," he warned. "The field, it's affecting our phase state." Jiho opened his eyes. They now glowed with the same blue light as the machine. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Can you feel it, Commander?" Jiho asked. "The sensation of being fixed in one place, of not being able to shift between states?" A small smile formed on his lips. "This is how we humans live every day." Rock's form appeared more solid now, less like light and more like flesh. The commander looked down at his hands in horror. "What have you done to me?" "I haven't done anything to you," Jiho replied calmly. "I've done something for you. I've given you the gift of mortality." As he spoke, the room began to shake. The song protocol was entering its second phase. The spinning petals moved faster, and the blue light grew stronger. Tay checked the readings. Again. "Father, your brain activity is off the charts. Your body can't handle this much longer." Jiho nodded slightly. "It doesn't need to, just long enough for the wave to spread." He turned his glowing eyes to Rock. "You said your people have lived for 10,000 years. In all that time, what have you learned about life?" Rock didn't answer. He was too busy trying to phase shift, to return to his immortal state. But nothing happened. He remained solid. "I'll tell you what my wife taught me," Jiho continued, his voice growing weaker despite the power flowing through him. "She taught me that a single day lived fully is worth more than 1,000 years of empty existence." One of the Eternal One soldiers suddenly collapsed to the floor. Its body, now fully solid, shook with what looked like fear. "The effect is spreading," Tay announced. "It's working faster than we calculated." On the computer screen, a map showed blue waves expanding, outward from their location. The waves passed through the walls of the bunker, through the ground, into the city above. Wherever they touched an Eternal One, the alien became solid, mortal. Rock watched the screen with growing horror. "You're not just affecting me," he realized. "You're changing all of us." "Yes," Jiho said simply. "Every Eternal One on Earth." Rock lunged forward suddenly, trying to reach Jiho, but an invisible barrier around the song protocol pushed him back. "You cannot do this. We are the Eternal Ones. We have conquered galaxies." "And what did conquering bring you?" Jiho asked, genuinely curious despite the pain now evident on his face. "Did it make you happy? Did it give your endless lives meaning?" For the first time, Rock seemed to have no answer. The room shook more violently now. Parts of the ceiling began to fall. The song protocol had entered its third phase. "Father," Tay said urgently, "we need to disconnect you. The readings are critical. Your brain is—" "Not yet," Jiho interrupted. "The wave needs to reach the ships in orbit. It needs to reach all of them." Tay looked at the computer. The blue waves on the map were spreading faster now, covering the entire city, reaching out to other parts of the country. "What's happening to me?" Rock demanded, his voice now sounding more human, more afraid. Jiho's glowing eyes fixed on the commander. "Your body is settling into a single quantum state. You're becoming like us, mortal, limited." He paused, then added softly, "alive." Rock fell to his knees, his once powerful form now looking almost fragile. The light inside him had dimmed to a faint glow. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you do this to us?" "Because you forgot," Ji-ho replied, his voice fading. "You forgot what it means to truly live. When you have endless time, nothing matters. Nothing is precious." He winced as pain shot through him. "But when you know your time will end, every moment becomes a gift." The room was falling apart around them now. General Kim, who had been watching from near the door, shouted, "We need to evacuate. This whole place is coming down." Scientists ran for the exits. The Eternal One soldiers, now fully mortal, fled as well, confused and frightened by their new state. Only Rock remained, staring at Ji-ho with a mixture of anger and something like wonder. "Tae," Ji-ho said, his voice barely audible over the noise of the collapsing bunker. "The disconnection sequence. It's time." Tae moved quickly to the computer, typing commands with shaking hands. "Hold on, Father," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just a few more seconds." On the screen, the blue waves had now covered most of the continent and were spreading across the oceans. Reports were coming in from around the world of Eternal One soldiers suddenly becoming solid, vulnerable. Their ships, once impenetrable, were shutting down as their quantum technology failed. Ji-ho's body had begun to change. He was becoming transparent like the Eternal Ones had once been. But unlike them, he seemed to be fading, his physical form breaking down under the strain of processing so much quantum information. "The wave has reached global coverage," Tae announced. "All Eternal Ones on Earth have been affected." He pressed, the final key for the disconnection sequence. Shutting down neural link now, the song protocol began to power down. The spinning pedals slowed and the blue light dimmed, but Ji-ho remained connected, his eyes still glowing. "Something's wrong," Tae said, panic in his voice. "The neural link isn't disconnecting." Ji-ho smiled faintly. "It's all right, Tae," he said, his voice now sounding distant. "I knew this might happen. The connection, it's too deep now." "No." Tae frantically tried other commands. "There has to be a way." Ji-ho shook his head slowly. "The song protocol needs a consciousness to guide it until the end, to complete the pattern." He looked at his son with love. It was always going to be this way. A large section of ceiling crashed down nearby. General Kim grabbed Tae's arm. "We have to go now," he shouted. "This whole place is seconds from collapse." Tae resisted, trying to reach his father. "I won't leave him." Ji-ho's voice suddenly grew stronger for a moment. "Tae, listen to me. You must live. You must tell others what happened here, what it means." His form flickered like a bad television signal. "Remember what your mother said before she died?" Tears streamed down Tae's face. "She said that love makes us immortal in the only way that matters." Ji-ho nodded, smiling through his pain. "Go now. Live fully. That's all any of us can do." As the bunker crumbled around them, General Kim pulled Tae toward the exit. The last thing Tae saw before the dust filled the room was his father, glowing, with blue light, and beside him Commander Rock, watching with the stunned expression of someone seeing the world clearly for the very first time. 1 month had passed since the day the song protocol changed everything. The world was different now. Tae stood at his father's hospital bed, looking down at Ji-ho's still form. The older man's body was there, breathing slowly, but his mind was somewhere else. The doctors called it a coma, but Tae knew it was more than that. His father had connected with something beyond human understanding when he activated the song protocol, and part of him was still there. "Any change today?" asked General Kim, who had just entered the room. The general's arm was in a cast, broken during their escape from the collapsing bunker. Tae shook his head. "No, but I talked to him anyway. I think he can hear me." General Kim nodded and placed a small vase of flowers on the bedside table. "The president is coming to visit tomorrow, to thank your father personally, even if he can't hear it." "He'll hear it," Tae said quietly. The general looked out the window. From the hospital room, they could see one of the Eternal One's ships. It no longer floated in the air. It sat on the ground in what used to be a park, its crystal surface now dull and solid. "Have you spoken with them today?" General Kim asked. "Yes," Tay replied. "They're still struggling to understand what happened, what they've become." After the Song Protocol had spread across the planet and into orbit, every Eternal One had been changed. They were no longer immortal. They could no longer pass through solid objects or repair their bodies instantly. They were mortal, like humans. And they were terrified. "Rock is waiting in the conference room," General Kim said. "He wants to speak with you again." Tay nodded. "I'll go in a minute." He leaned down and spoke to his father. "I'm going to talk to Rock now, Father. I'll tell you all about it when I get back." He squeezed his father's hand gently, then followed General Kim out of the room. In the hospital conference room, Commander Rock sat alone at a large table. He looked very different now. His skin was still pale, but it was no longer transparent. The lights that had once flowed inside his body were gone. He looked almost human except for his height and his large, dark eyes. Rock stood when Ty entered. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice was different too, no longer echoing and musical but rough and uncertain. Tay sat across from him. "You wanted to speak with me?" Rock nodded and sat down again. "My people are struggling. For 10,000 years we knew exactly what we were. Now we don't know anymore." "You're mortal," Tay said simply. "Like us." "Yes." Rock looked down at his hands. "We feel pain now. We get hungry. We get tired. Some of us have become sick." He looked up at Tay. "And we know we will die someday." "Does that frighten you?" Tay asked. "Yes," Rock admitted. "It terrifies us. How do you humans live with this knowledge every day? How do you function knowing your time is limited?" Tay thought about his father, lying in the hospital bed. About his mother who had died years ago. "That's the secret," he said. "We live because our time is limited. It makes everything more precious." Rock considered this. "Your father said something similar. Before the end. He said that when you know your time will end, every moment becomes a gift." The former commander shook his head. "We never saw time as a gift before. It was endless for us, so it had no value." Tay nodded. "Think about it this way. If you had all the money in the world and could never run out, each coin would mean nothing to you. But if you only had a few coins, each one would be important." "And you believe this is better?" Rock asked. "This limited existence?" "I believe it's more meaningful," Tay replied. "When things can end, we appreciate them more. We love more deeply. We live more fully." Rock was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There is something else I wanted to tell you. Something we discovered in the ruins of the bunker." Tay leaned forward. "What is it?" "We found pieces of the Song Protocol device," Rock explained. "Our scientists, former immortals who now study your human science, have been examining them. They believe there might be a way to use what's left to help your father." Tay's heart beat faster. "Help him how?" "The connection between his mind and the quantum field is still active," Rock said. "That's why he hasn't awakened. But we think we can reverse it, bring him back to this reality." "You would do that?" Tay asked, surprised. "After what he did to your people?" Rock's expression was hard to read. "At first, we hated him. We wanted revenge. But as the days passed and we began to experience life as mortals, something changed." He paused. "Yesterday I tasted food for the first time. Really tasted it. The flavors were incredible. I watched the sunset and realized I would only see a limited number of sunsets in my life, and suddenly, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen." Tay nodded, understanding. "Your father didn't curse us," Rock continued. "I'm beginning to think he gave us a gift. He gave us the ability to truly appreciate existence." Rock stood up. "So yes, we want to help him. If we can." Later that day, Tay sat beside his father's bed again. The room was now filled with strange equipment, a smaller version of the Song Protocol, rebuilt by the former Eternal Ones with their advanced knowledge. "Are you ready?" asked one of the aliens, who now worked as a scientist instead of a soldier. Tay nodded. "Do it." The alien activated the device. A soft blue glow filled the room, gentler than before. It surrounded Jiho's body, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "Now we wait," the alien scientist said. Tay held his father's hand and spoke softly to him. "Come back, Father. There's so much to tell you. The world has changed, and I think it's changed for the better." Hours passed. The blue light continued to pulse, and then, just as the sun was setting outside the window, Jiho's fingers moved. His eyelids fluttered. "Father?" Tay leaned closer. Jiho's eyes opened slowly. They were normal now, no longer glowing with quantum energy. He looked confused for a moment, then focused on his son's face. "Tay," he whispered, his voice weak from disuse. "I heard you. All this time I heard you talking. To me." Tears filled Tay's eyes. "Welcome back." Jiho looked around the room, noticing the alien scientist standing nearby. "It worked then? The song protocol?" "Yes," Tay confirmed. "All of them. Everywhere on Earth and in orbit. They're like us now." Jiho took a deep breath. "And how are they handling mortality?" Tay smiled. "Learning, adapting, discovering what it means to truly live." He squeezed his father's hand. "Rock says you gave them a gift." Jiho looked surprised. "Rock is still alive?" "Yes. He wants to meet with you when you're stronger. I think he wants to thank you." Jiho shook his head slightly. "I never expected that." The alien scientist stepped forward. "Dr. Han," he said respectfully, "your device did more than just make us mortal. It made us see the universe differently. Some of us are even experiencing emotions we never knew existed." Jiho studied the former Eternal One with interest. "What will you do now? Your conquest is over." "We're not sure yet," the alien admitted, "but many of us want to learn from humans, to understand how you've lived with mortality for so long and still found joy." He bowed slightly. "There is much we can learn from each other." Later, as the room grew dark with evening, Jiho and Tay were left alone. Outside the window, stars began to appear in the night sky. "Your mother would be proud of you," Jiho said, softly. Tay smiled. "She would be proud of both of us." Jiho looked out at the stars. "You know, when I was connected to the quantum field, I understood something that I can't quite explain now. About life and death, about time and meaning." He turned to his son. "But I think Sumi understood it all along." "What did she understand?" Tay asked. Jiho's eyes were peaceful as he answered. "That we don't need endless time to be immortal. We just need to love, to create, to matter to one another." He smiled. "The Eternal Ones lived for 10,000 years, but never understood what your mother knew in her brief life." "And what was that?" Tay asked. "That mortality isn't our weakness," Jiho replied. "It's our greatest strength. It's what makes us human." Outside the hospital window, the former Eternal One's ship caught the last light of day. No longer a weapon of war, but a reminder of how one human, armed with the truth about what makes life precious, had changed an immortal army forever. The end.